Surviving the Survivor, we bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation, and welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor. It is the podcast that typically brings you the best guests in true crime, but we try to do a very small part in helping when there are catastrophes. Last time around, it was the Maui wildfires, and tonight, the COE's hometown of Los Angeles, the city of Angels, is literally on fire. And moments ago, a new fire broke out, which we'll tell you about in just a second. But the purpose of this show, and right off the bat, no one's sweeter, more generous than Canine Catherine. Already a $50 super chat here. After losing the entire historic town of Lahaina and Maui, over 100 souls, restaurants, businesses, family homes, and more, it is my sad honor to pay it forward towards this horrible tragedy in California, the home of my birth and first 30 years. COE, if we can mute KTLA, I think I'm hearing a little bit of it in the background. But anyone who is able to give a super chat, it's going to go directly to Liz Lynn of the Los Angeles Fire Department Foundation. She is joining us. Just very quickly to start this off, at least 5 people have already died in these historic fires. Governor Gavin Newsom was in Los Angeles today, and he sadly said to expect that number to grow and grow substantially. I was trying to keep count of these fires. It was virtually impossible. At one point, it was 3, then it was 5. Literally, just before going on air, the Hollywood Hills caught fire, which is where the COE is from. Nichols Canyon is the area that's in jeopardy. COE, are you familiar? And for some reason, I think we're still hearing something in the background. I don't know. I've got the din of something playing. But COE, are you familiar with Nichols Canyon?
Yeah, I'm trying to see if it's on my end here. First of all, thank you everyone for being here. We really appreciate it. I do want to comment that while we usually cover true crime, the reason we thought this was such an important story to cover is not only do we have family there, all of my family and Space Coast, obviously, but we also had a lot of people from the STS community who were reaching out, who were telling us that they were safe, who were asking questions and trying to check in. And so while we usually cover strictly true crime, we figured that in a case like this, it was important to cover this. This is devastating. As you look at the images and you see the videos of homes being engulfed by flames, it's just unreal to really grasp what's going on there. And for those of you that are there, obviously, I can't even imagine what you guys are feeling. So it was very important for us to do this. And again, yes, we are hearing that there are some new fires that are breaking out. And the fire in the Hollywood Hills area is actually near Runyon Canyon. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with the area, it's actually a big canyon, and it takes you from the Hollywood area down to the city. It also goes up and goes down into the valley. And it's a very popular area. There are many homes there. People frequent it. It's a very popular place where on any given day, you'll see hundreds of people hiking there with their dogs, with their families. And so it's really devastating. And I'll let the experts talk more about this. But what's interesting about all of these fires is that usually in the wildfire season in Southern California, we do often see several wildfires popping up, but we've never really seen anything like this, where they're popping up and sort of surrounding Los Angeles all at once, moving very quickly. And so from the outside looking in, it just looks like it's impossible to tackle it, as so many different wildfires are popping up. But we'll let our experts weigh in.
Yeah,
Joel.
and we're going to get to Tom Marino on that in a minute, but I'm going to go around the horn here. COE, can you lift them up so I can continue to put comments up without cutting people off? But yeah, I'm just curious. So Elizabeth Rona is a fittingly, a traumatologist and a psychologist. Tell us, Elizabeth, it's obviously going to be a profession that's much in need in LA after this, because people are definitely traumatized. I've been following local news and local radio there. I understand you had to evacuate your own home. Where were you? Where are you now? And how are you feeling?
Thanks for having me, and thanks for the question. Yes, this is my third evacuation in Los Angeles, but it felt different this time because of the winds. It didn't feel like it was something that humans could take a handle on. And it was so strong you couldn't stand outside because you would be pushed around. And even in my car driving, my car was like shaking. And so I put everything in the car, not just for a couple days like I've done in the past, but it was more like, if I never see any of my stuff again, what do I want with me? It was that feeling. And we went to a hotel. My husband and I went to a hotel. And we wanted to be with friends who were in Pacific Palisades, and they lost their backyard, and their front house miraculously is standing, even though the rest of their street is gone. All the homes on their street are gone, and there's a looming fire licking their neighbors above them. So it's not over for them. But even at breakfast today, the emotions were so everywhere. And even though my home wasn't initially threatened, at least not the way theirs was, it felt like my community, as I was watching the devastation in the next town over to where I live, there was nothing left. And I have maybe 10 people I know, many of them really well, who lost their homes. Then my children out of state and in very different parts of the LA start calling and texting me, and I say, oh yeah, no, stay safe. And then next thing I know, my extended family in Altadena, in North Hollywood, everywhere, they're evacuated too now. So we're all in different parts of the city evacuated. And it's so emotionally, it's so interesting, because I wanted to be there for my friends, but at the same time, I was so aware of how big these feelings are, and they're hard to get a grasp on. And I think that the best thing that I can recommend, and that I've done for myself, is just flow with them. Whatever emotion arises, share it. And I had like a sour, tight stomach all day yesterday. And the moment we were able to share with each other, just like the moments, my stomach ache went away. So there's something about, they say misery loves company, but in this case, it really does help to be miserable together as opposed to alone. So being human is universal, and it happens whether I have tools that I can share with people, and I have many, but the human being part is still something we each have to feel, and I've been feeling it. It's been a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Good news and bad news,
Yeah. Yeah, Elizabeth, we'll get back to what people can do who are feeling traumatized, and I know that they are. I just want to run through some quick statistics, and then get to our other two guests, and then continue to go around the horn here. But obviously, the city of Los Angeles, the county emergency workers are stretched extremely thin. They said that they were prepared for 1 or 2 major brush fires, but not 4. Now you've got this one in the Hollywood Hills, coupled with the fact that they've run out of water, which I'm going to get to with Tom in a moment. Pacific Palisades, which is next to Malibu, it is the most destructive fire in LA history. 1,000 structures are burned. And I got to tell you, I just got a text message from an STS Nation member whose family just lost their home in the Palisades. So hearts go out to you. Robin Ray, I know you're in LA. Let us know. Jimmy McNutty, if you're here, there you are. I see you right there, Jimmy. Let us know if you guys are okay. The 99-year-old actor Dick Van Dyke, he had to be whisked away from his home in Malibu. He thought he was going to be able to put this fire out with a hose, and then said he realized he was 99 years old, and his neighbors basically had to drag him away. Will Rogers' famous ranch destroyed. AccuWeather, who put some estimates out on this, already say there's between $52 to $57 billion in preliminary damage and economic loss in Los Angeles. That's a mind-blowing number. That's going to go much higher, I think.
Joel,
Without further ado,
Joel, I'm going to hop in here really quickly. So Robin Ray right now is saying loudspeakers are telling us to leave. And Robin, we hope you're safe, and definitely evacuate if you are being asked to evacuate. And I want to bring this up with Tom Marino because people don't realize until you're in it, until it's almost too close to home, how serious these evacuation orders are and how quickly the fire spread. And for background, Tom, I am by no means a professional in wildfire seasons or in fighting the wildfires. However, I was a reporter for CBS News, and I was there for the several wildfires. And I was there several times, and we were in very risky situations, and we had to almost be saved ourselves. And so I have seen how quickly these situations change. But Tom, please tell us about your expertise. And as you're watching this all unfold, you know, with the 30 plus years of experience, what do people need to know, and why is it so difficult to try to contain and control these fires?
Yeah, three-part question. Let me start by saying I love Los Angeles and that area, and I spent quite a bit of time there, and it's heartbreaking to see what's happening there. Number two, the LA County, LA City, and surrounding suburban fire departments are the gold standard in wildland urban interface firefighting. They're just the best there is in the world, probably. And so if they're having a problem handling this, it truly is the catastrophe that everybody says it is. So the first factor is the wind. Okay. And then you combine that with the extremely low humidity, sometimes 5 to 8% humidity. I mean, that's as dry as it gets. And so all of the fuels are pre-dried out, right? And so it's like pouring gasoline on paper and throwing a match into the mix. And that's what you get. And then the wind spreads the fire exponentially. And this is as close to the technical people will maybe argue the definition of a firestorm, but I think this probably fits now because it creates its own weather too. And you have maybe minutes, sometimes seconds to evacuate. So when they say evacuate, that means now because you're not going to get a second chance. It is truly a disaster of apocalyptic proportions.
Yeah. For those who do not know, Tom Marino is a best guest tonight. He retired after serving more than 31 years with the Auburn Fire Department, which is outside of Seattle. He's been deployed to numerous wildfires in that state and elsewhere. And he is a Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine. So thank you for your service, Tom Marino. Liz Lynn has not gotten a word in edgewise yet, so let's get her in there. She is the president. She oversees the Los Angeles Fire Department Foundation. She oversees the day-to-day operations and works with the board and staff to ensure that all the strategic objectives are being met. First of all, Liz, are you safe? Where are you? And secondly, just tell us what the foundation is all about.
Sure. I am safe. I was at the Palisades fire yesterday and this morning, all day yesterday. I can truly tell you that everybody's saying that it looks like a war zone. It is a war zone. It is absolutely devastating what I saw this morning. I saw Malibu as well going up. Hollywood Hills, I just saw that we did a water drop there. So it's nice that we've got the helicopters in. The biggest fear right now is it's such erratic fire behavior. These winds are totally unpredictable. I've never seen 40 to 50-mile winds on the beach. That's unheard of. And so we're seeing a lot of things that we've never seen before. And and the resources are spread extremely thin. And to get to what the foundation does, that's the less sexier part. So I run the foundation, and we are a mission-driven organization. That means that we channel as much money back as we can to the Los Angeles Fire Department. And what that means is 97% of the city's budget for fire is personnel. I mean, fighting fires, answering emergency calls is all about the people and the firefighters that we have. 3% of the city's fire budget's devoted to technology, equipment, and programs. And every year there's a gap of funding of what's needed versus what's asked and given. Especially last year, we saw a shortfall. So we've been aggressively fundraising just to help, and we do this every year, raise money and buy the tools and equipment. And we work with LAFD leadership, the special units, and even the 106 fire stations.
Robin Ray, by the way, said to pray for her. She's literally evacuating as we speak, and also letting us know that Laurel Canyon, which is a prominent spot, is in danger now. To you, Elizabeth, I'm just trying to have a little issue with my computer here, but Elizabeth, people are, I was listening to local radio in Los Angeles, and people are exhausted. By the way, shout out to Phantom 6000. He's in Los Angeles. He just gave us a super chat. All super chats are going to the LAFD Foundation. That's Liz Lynn's organization. So please send it that way. Or please, if you send a super chat, we will send it that way. But Elizabeth, to you, the people on the radio are just, you can tell they're exhausted. The people of LA are exhausted. I mean, you literally are on edge. You have to be aware that a fire could swoop in. How do you stay calm? What's your advice to people, especially once they start to get tired?
Yeah, and you can see it in the firefighters. They're walking slowly. It's like everybody's exhausted. And also just there's something about seeing something devastatingly happen and not being able to do anything about it is exhausting. And the thing to remember is you can only do what you can do. And it usually means being in the moment. In this moment, how can you, what is it that you need? Ask yourself, what am I needing right now? What am I feeling? I realized that I was I was problem solving this morning at breakfast with my friends. And then I realized I have feelings. I need to come home inside me and figure out what I'm feeling so I can stay grounded. And I go, oh, I have these feelings. I need to share them with somebody. And the moment I did that tight stomach went away, that acid tight stomach where I couldn't digest my food went away. And I was able to take a breath and be in that moment. And from that calm place, the problem solution has clarity. And just as we were talking, I'm seeing that Laurel Canyon has a fire. My home is there. And so it's everywhere. It's like our city our whole community is being brought together. Los Angeles is a very far spread city for those that have never been here. And whoever lives on the east side maybe not know anybody on the west side and so forth, or doesn't come here very often. But we're all coming together through this fire. It's almost like but it's this eerie feeling. And staying in the moment and realizing what is too big to put your head around is okay. And it's just, am I thirsty? What am I thinking right now? Am I planning to leave LA? Am I worried about my insurance company dropping me? Oh, I'm worrying about future things, but what is happening in this moment? Attend to that. Come home and every moment to moment. Oh, I'm thirsty. I haven't eaten anything all day. Oh, I'm holding it. I have to go to the bathroom. these are, oh, my dog is anxious. These are the things that you want to pay attention to moment. If you're not a firefighter, I mean, you can't go out there and save anything because it's bigger than you. Then you have to be as big as you can be yourself. It's not easy to do, but it's if you try it, you get to exhale, and that's your cue
Yeah.
that you're doing the right thing.
COE, thank you for that. How are you feeling? I mean, your mom had to evacuate. She's with Space Coast. A lot of your friends, they're either they or their families have lost properties. I think, by the way, that sound is coming from you, COE. So I don't know if you can lower it or get rid of it, but anyway,
What? Sorry, I'm sorry. What are you hearing?
I think I'm hearing KTLA. Is it possible?
Can anyone else hear that as well?
No.
No, we're good.
Okay,
good.
you may, Joel, you may have an extra window open.
Oh, okay.
So the reason we wanted to do this is I will say it has been very stressful. My husband and I have a news background. We covered a lot of devastating fires. We cover a lot of really difficult cases. And then watching this unfold last night and being on a text thread with not only my family members, but all of my friends and everyone I grew up with, and my friends who just had newborns for the first time, who are freaking out, trying to figure out, how to evacuate, how to go somewhere where they can go with their newborn, but also their pets. And again, it's not just one place that this is impacting. And Liz probably really understands this since she's been there on the ground. But for those of you who don't understand the lay of the land, the Palisades is west. The Palisades is between Santa Monica and Malibu, and it overlooks the water. And so when the fire broke out, everyone's eyes were really focused on that in terms of like people that live there. Everyone was obviously devastated seeing that. But as that was unfolding, all of these other fires started to break out. So at least, for me, I was just being bombarded and flooded with all of these texts. And it is very difficult because so many of us, while we have a connection to LA, I was born and raised there. Obviously, Space Coast lives there. My mom was evacuated. All my extended family lives there. All of my friends who I adore live there. Some of us have since left. And so it is a very difficult situation where we don't know how to help and we don't know what to do. And even still, the people that are there have never really had to deal with a wildfire of this capacity. I remember the last big wildfire was a few years ago, and I remember it because I covered it for CBS News and I was pregnant. And I remember Joel, my husband, was like, "Get out of there. What are you doing?" But it was the last wildfire I covered, and that was still very devastating. And it was isolated in one neighborhood. And so to see this just popping up all over the map is really, really difficult. And I know that I was texting or DMing Abby, who's there on the screen, who has donated $50 and $150 to the LAFD Foundation. So thank you so much, Abby. She also grew up in LA. And I know so many of us have just been so overwhelmed and stressed just watching the city that we grew up in just burn. And there's really not much we can do. And again, going back to Liz, I have a few questions for you. Liz, you were on the ground there. I don't think people realize that when they're looking at some of the video, for example, the Palisades video, I have several friends who have lost their entire homes. And the videos that they're sending me and the photos that they're sharing with me of their homes, I was telling Joel, I haven't even seen my husband, so I haven't even shared them with him. I'm not seeing like bits and pieces of a house. I am literally seeing just like charred nothing. Like there's nothing left. And this is like the entire area. We're not talking about like a one portion of a neighborhood. We're talking about the entire neighborhood is essentially gone. As you were there on the ground, talk to us a little bit about what you were seeing as you were assessing this. And I know that obviously you have a different mindset than those of us who are not so used to walking in those environments. But as you're walking through, not only as a fire expert, but like as a human, what are you thinking? Like, how are you assessing this? because you're wearing two hats. I mean, you're always still, obviously, you have that side of humanity that you just probably can't take out of you as you're going through and seeing how difficult this is going to be for so many people.
Yeah, it's it's torn. I've got like a split personality because on one hand, I have to stop the desensitization of realizing that everything I'm seeing is someone's home. And so I have to remember that could be me. That could be someone in my family. And to take that and value that and take it seriously. With that said, the level of, for instance, going by a house and only seeing the chimney and or only seeing a staircase that was wrought iron survive, and that is literally the only thing you see, or you see someone who left a pot open. I passed on Sunset Boulevard a bunch of cars that people just left because the fire winds changed and they were told get out and go shelter in place. And so on Sunset Boulevard there are a bunch of cars lined up. People left, and we had to take a bulldozer to gain access into getting those roads up there. And to your point about literally neighborhoods, what's happening right now is the fire is so erratic with the winds. So it's really at the winds. The winds are so high that we can't run the helicopters sometimes. And so that merely makes it a hand on the ground battle, firefighter versus fires. As you've seen from those pictures, the firefighters are losing when the winds are that tough. And what happens is that the embers are being cast. So you are seeing that the firefighters are able to save, for instance, I talked to a firefighter today and he said, we were able to save 5 out of 6 homes on this cul-de-sac in Palisades, but we couldn't get to the 6th. We were able to save 2 out of 10 in this other street. And those stories that I'm hearing from the firefighters are devastating. They've never seen anything like this. I've talked to, 10, 20, 30 veterans who have been on the force for a long time. And we are all just leaving mouth gaping. And it's a tremendous amount of sadness. And it's also for the LAFD, a tremendous amount of purpose. This is what they train for. This is what they do. And they want to do it to the best of their ability. So they are trying their damnedest to save as much as they can. But given the limitations, it's really tough.
Yeah. I'm gonna turn to Tom now for a few questions here. Tom, there's a question here. Why isn't the government sending help? The Navy, the Pentagon is getting involved and sending, I think, 10 choppers over. But Tom Marino, what is the single toughest thing for you as a firefighter? And keep in mind, I mean, these are, wildfires, but in an urban area. What's the toughest part for you, for these firefighters collectively in fighting these fires?
Oh, I think the toughest thing, especially emotionally, is triaging to decide which ones you're going to be able to save and which ones you aren't going to be able to save. Because let's face it, they know, especially when the air assets were grounded, that they were fighting this from the ground with water from the ground in 50, 60, 70 mile an hour winds, and they didn't have a chance. So they had to decide which neighborhoods, which houses, which streets they could protect realistically, and then let the other ones go. And I can tell you that's gut wrenching for a firefighter because we save everybody, or we try to. And when you have thousands of homes and structures burning to the ground, that's probably the toughest part of it emotionally. The difficult part physically is that you go and you go and you go. I mean, I saw a report talking to a firefighter who had come from Orange County after a 48-hour shift, and he'd been on the line for another 48 hours. But you do what you have to do, and like Liz said, this is what they train for. This is a firefight of monumental proportions, and it looks like
Tom,
it's only getting worse.
Have you seen anything like this? I mean, I know you're not physically there. You're in the Seattle area. Have you seen anything like this?
There was an incident in eastern Washington where an entire small town burned down. I was not there. Some of our folks were deployed there, but this, I don't think hardly anybody's ever seen anything like this. And I've been around a long time, an old dinosaur, and I remember the fires in Oakland and San Francisco, and the Malibu fires and stuff like that. But this is on a whole nother level here.
Yeah. And Tom has amazing insight because he spent 31 years doing this. And on top of that, he's a Marine. So this guy's literally served his country in multiple ways over many years. This is a question that's tough to ask. I don't want to beat up on people while this is going on, but I spoke to you briefly off camera about this. In the Pacific Palisades, I think it was yesterday, the fire hydrants went dry. Now, from what I'm hearing, they have the water, but the hydrants are dry, and we can get to Liz on this too. What is going on there, Tom? That seems like a big problem that could have been avoided.
Yeah, it's a nightmare scenario for firefighters. I mean, when the air assets were grounded, they had no other way to deliver water than through their hoses. Okay. And if you can't pump water, you're not going to save anything. And that's why they turned to strictly evacuation measures. They were doing their best to evacuate people and save lives, and had to let the structures burn because in many cases they didn't have water. Why they didn't have water? There's been a couple of different explanations. I guess it'll all come out in the hot wash, but yeah, that's a nightmare scenario for firefighters. No water.
Liz, to you, and I know the COE is monitoring stuff, and COE obviously feel free to jump in, but aside from super chats, and we're getting quite a few, and they're all going to go to the LAFD Foundation, of which Liz runs the organization. How can people help? I think a lot of people feel helpless. A lot of people, like Papa Bear just said, her elderly parents are in the Glendale area. There are people watching this all over the world. Many people have relatives or know people. So what can people do aside from just either monetary donations or praying? Aside from those two things, how can people actually work to help this particular situation?
Yeah, at this point, I've got a couple of thoughts on that. So thank you, first of all, for everybody who's listening and for your caring and for donating and doing what you can to help us. Let me just state right now that the most important thing for us is for donations. We are getting food, we are getting water, we are getting Gatorade. We're delivering as fast as we can. However, we've had huge outpourings, and we're managing and we're trying to get them distributed in time, and we're channeling resources right now over to Hollywood Hills. I talked with the American Red Cross this morning. They're opening up a number of evacuation centers. They do need volunteers. They were having to suspend blood donations, and so they are going to need help with both blood donations and with volunteers to help at the evacuation centers. I was told that they have information on their website, so just check out the American Red Cross, the Los Angeles chapter. They are accepting help in terms of volunteers for different things.
And Liz, how long have you been up? I don't want to call you out on air, but you do look a little tired, and I understand. Have you been up for a couple of days?
Yeah, I've been here since the start.
Wow. Kudos to you again.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, as I said, it was tough to even keep count. COE, to you,
Yeah.
I mean, your friends are, and I mean this lovingly, are basically a mess right now, very understandably so. Who are you talking to? What are they telling you?
Yeah, so I've been speaking to my friends who have pretty much been evacuated from everywhere from Malibu, the Palisades, Santa Monica, Woodland Hills. So like everything that was affected by the Palisades fire, which then spread out, and then all the way to the east side, which is the Pasadena area. And then right now, as we're watching this unfold here via KTLA, who has had phenomenal extensive coverage. We know many of the reporters there, and they do a phenomenal job. And they also, mind you, put their lives at risk sometimes to show us what's going on. And many of them have actually been helping other people get out safely. So kudos to them. But I've been also getting tons of text messages, even right now, from friends saying that they're close to these fires. Everyone thought that they were in this safety zone where they weren't being evacuated by the Pali fire or by the Altadena fire. And now all of a sudden, here we are, everyone now that's close to Hollywood, whether it's on the valley side or the middle of the city, is very much scared and very much affected. And I just want to share a story from a few years ago from when I was there. And I want to ask Tom and Liz about this. I remember being, and this was in the valley, in like the Deep Valley. I remember being at a fire scene, and it was nearly contained. So it wasn't even like, at the worst point. But I remember there was a fire at the end of the street, and within half a second, there was a tiny little wind gust, and those embers flew so quickly to another house, and fire crews were like, get in your car and get out of here. And so even right now, as we're watching this fire unfold in front of us, this is a Sunset Fire. I mean, how quickly is this spreading and how fast is this moving? And as you guys are there trying to contain these fires and trying to fight them, I mean, what is the plan as you go in? Or are crews showing up and having to assess it by foot and then try to figure it out?
Good question.
I can answer for the Hollywood Hills right now. What you're seeing on the TV. So the Hollywood Hills has, especially in those canyons, those are hiking canyons. And so there's a lot of dry brush there. And those embers can go a couple of miles away. So that's a particular concern. Anyone here who has family, and if they think that they can stay in place and, hose down their house in a wind-driven fire, that's not going to work. And I'm encouraging anyone who is in these areas to please get out as quickly as you can if you are asked to evacuate. Wind-driven fires do not respond very well to just putting your hose out and trying to water down. That'll help for a little bit, but the way these winds are going and the speed of which they're carrying, I want everybody safe.
By the way,
one of the
more
problems,
than Tom, I'm sorry. Hang on one sec, but I just want to get this in there. More than 150,000 residents now in LA are under evacuation orders. You just saw Robin Ray live on our air saying that the loudspeakers were telling her to evacuate, which she did, which is obviously very smart. More than 3 million are without power in Los Angeles County, and that's going to probably rise. Tom, please share your thought. And my question to you is, how do the firefighters keep themselves safe? I mean, they're going into the danger zone. They obviously have families. I know you have a family. They are true heroes. So your thought followed by how do you keep yourself safe out there?
Well, first of all, if you look at the yellow, now green area on the screen, Liz was talking about spotting ahead of the fire, especially in a wind-driven fire. And that's where you get the spread of the fire so quickly. It really can be very unpredictable. I mean, typically in structure fires, it's a science, right? It's heat, fuel, and oxygen. We know that. And we know how it reacts in a structure. But in situations like this, you can throw a lot of the science out the window because the winds make it so unpredictable and you have no idea. Predicting where the fire will go.
I don't know what is starting these fires, but it's a spark of anything. It could be a cigarette butt. It could be a lawnmower. It could be an electrical pole that's fallen by the winds. Anything that sparks off, that generates just the smallest spark in these dry brush conditions can trigger a fire. And when there's a wind, it just blows.
And the spotting can go for miles too. So
Tom, explain that, because I was not familiar with that word, but when the Hollywood Hills fire just broke out, and that's what we're looking at, I believe, Chris Christie is a friend of mine who's happens to be the ABC chopper reporter, who's talking about that. So explain, what does that mean?
Okay, so the embers from the fire, especially when you have significant winds like you do in this situation, can be forward of the fire either, yards or even miles. And so what you'll get is embers carried a long way on the wind, and then they drop in an dry area, and start another fire. And, that might even be the case in this particular instance here. And it's a nightmare scenario for firefighters because it's almost like whack-a-mole. You're trying to find where another fire is starting and then be able to extinguish it before it gets to something like this. I did notice in this video feed that they have rotary wing assets back in the air. So if they're flying, that's going to improve the situation tremendously.
Wow. COE, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, as we're looking at these fires, maybe not so much the one in Hollywood, but in Eaton Canyon and the Pali Fire, they're also in areas that tend to be more rural. And so a lot of people are asking about animals and evacuating animal shelters and the efforts being made there, because a lot of people move to Malibu or they move to the Topeka Canyon specifically so that they can have the land to have animals. Same with Eaton Canyon. Liz, can you give us any kind of update on what that has been like? Has it been more challenging than previous wildfires? Do you think there has been more or less of an effort to try to focus on that?
No, listen, I'm a hardcore, huge animal lover. So that's of always prime concern for me. Typically, when this stuff happens, the Office of Emergency Services for the city coordinates, and the same happens on the county side with animal services, so that they get evacuation shelters for the animals. So there are evacuation points for the horses and everything, any other kind of animals. And the rescue shelters are, trying to adapt to all the increasing populations that are coming in. I've tried to coordinate some rescue groups to help with any other offshoots, and we just do the best job we can. And it's the power of everybody acting as one. We are all in this trying to help each other out, and so that's so they've got plans in action similar to what Red Cross does. They do it for the animals. Different organizations and the city and governmental animal services will work in cohesion with them.
Yeah, I know.
And
Tom,
Liz,
Go ahead, COE. Go ahead.
From a strategy standpoint, for those of us that really understand the lay of the land and understand how many fires are happening, how big they are, and how spread out they are in terms of not even the city, but the whole county, how do you strategize or figure out what the priority is? Or is it just, wherever you have X amount of firefighters, you're going to send them to this location first? Or is it by how quickly they're spreading? Or is there some kind of strategy in place in a situation like this where the fires really are not contained and they appear to be popping up every few hours?
They base it on where the fires come up. So there is a strategy, and it's called mutual aid. And so, and it's all the fire assets in the state of California are part of a grid, and they are called in as we anticipate, and we pre-deploy. So in anticipation of the fires, we had staged some places. I think Pasadena also had some staging with statewide vehicles and with our own LAFD vehicles. So that pre-deploy happens. As these fires pop up, we are redirecting. And so it is a little whack-a-mole in that, do we have to close this station? How do we back up this? What resources are coming in? And so there is a full operational, we call it EOC, Emergency Operations, and Department Emergency Operations. And they're at a war room coordinating all of these, assigning special people to logistics, who's going to fight the fire, where everybody's coming and where they're going. They typically only have to do it with one major fire like the Palisades. So this is unprecedented, this many fires going on with this much severity.
Elizabeth, to you, we lost Elizabeth for a little bit. During the course of the show, one of the members of our community had to evacuate. And I heard something interesting that last night, overwhelmingly, people were talking about it, that the husbands went to bed and the wives were up kind of worrying. So I guess I have a two-part question. Are men just dumber than women? And number two, is there sort of a paralysis that sets in sometimes where you can't believe that it's happening to you and you have to evacuate and you kind of freeze up?
And
Right.
Elizabeth, before you answer that, number three, but it's the most important. We realize this new fire is very close to your home. So one, if you have to go, please, to go handle anything with family or if you need your own kind of support, please don't feel
Yeah.
like you need to be here.
No.
And two, if there's any way we can support you or help you as you're going through this, please lean on
Thank you. No,
Yeah,
yeah,
of
thank
course.
you. I'm keeping an eye on it. I had to get off because people were calling me saying that 4 family members just lost their house in Altadena, and so they were all like calling me, and I think it cut me off. So I'm back and I'm watching, the Hollywood fire, and I'm interested in what you guys have to say. I want to say I want to ask a couple questions to the experts. I was told not to turn on sprinklers because it reduces the water of accessibility and availability to the firefighters. Is that something that you can speak to, and should people know it? Because I noticed so many, as I was, it took me an hour and a half to check into the hotel because there were so many evacuees, their children, their car loaded with their pets, trying to get into this hotel. And people were cutting each other off. They were going down the wrong lane on the street. And I thought, you know what? None of us really are trained civically to think civically. And I think this whole traffic jam that happened where people abandoned their locked cars and on a road that the firefighters needed to use is an example of how we as individuals can panic. There's fight, flight, freeze, to speak to your question. And if you freeze, you don't think about your surroundings. You don't think about that there are other people around you, and you make it worse for yourself and everyone else when
That's a
you
really great point.
don't
That's
have that
yeah.
awareness. And that's why I want to go back to my point. First, you have to think, what am I feeling? What am I thinking? What do I need right now? To ground yourself so that you can be not only the best survivor for yourself, but also the best citizen. And I think we need to teach this to kids, because I've seen grown-ups freak out for no reason. And at the same time, I want to say, at this hotel, people, the thing that has been so gracious is how kind people are to each other. Someone hit my husband's car because he was so nervous driving at the hotel, and he was offering, to make friends. We were all neighbors, after all. We were all in the same community. And I think, I want to correct what I said earlier, and I said misery doesn't like company. Misery needs company in order for it to calm down. And that's remembering to think of ourselves and each other. So I appreciate when my friends interrupt my participation here, because they're concerned about me and they're giving me information. So I just want
Uh,
to say that.
yeah. By the way, a couple of trolls have arrived in the chat, and I'm only bringing it up to say that there is zero tolerance here. People are making a political issue out of things that happened in Los Angeles, and celebrating this because of that. If you're doing that,
Joel, you don't have to address it. I'm deleting them and
you,
banning
you
them,
need
so it's fine.
as Steve Cohen says, a checkup from the neck up. I'll stick Tom Marino on you. He's a Marine, and he'll go after you. Liz, to you, seriously, if you're doing that, you're just a pathetic human being. The evacuation centers. So 3 evacuation centers have been set up, from what I understand. I'm sure this number has changed a little bit, Liz, and I know you talked about it a little while ago. For people, 12 for animals. This, I guess, is through different parts of, obviously, the LA area. There was video last night of patients at assisted living, elderly people being wheeled literally away. My father was in a wheelchair the last couple of years. He was with us. How do you cope with that? Let's start it there.
You don't cope with it. You just go and deal with and do what you have to do, and you get as many people out as you can. So that's again, LAFD, LA County, all the fire departments, they are trained to do this. And their first and foremost priority is to save human life. Their second priority is to protect communities and property. And the minute they see someone, they're going to try to get them out. They know what the situational analysis is or awareness is. So they know where the winds are shifting. They can feel it and see it. And they get there with the urgency they need to.
Yeah, there was a spokesperson for the American College of Emergency Physicians who said, and I quote here, "We have a number of hospitals threatened, and if they have to be evacuated, this could become an even bigger crisis." It's kind of amazing, actually. As far as I know, no hospitals have been affected. Have you come close? What is the plan in case a hospital does need to be evacuated?
Again, it would go back to the Emergency Operations Center, and at that center, there is representatives from every facet, water and power, every major organization, and they are in a war room, and they say, we anticipate, we see the wind going in 10 minutes, the fire might be here with the wind going in that direction, and they are trying to anticipate that and get the notices out and communicate with those different, whether it's an animal, a ranch, or a hospital. It's the same thing. We're trying to anticipate and trying to get everybody in the situation handled as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Tom, to you, I mean, is there a way for you guys to prioritize these things? I mean, what if you do know that there's an assisted living facility on one end of a block and, I don't know, a youth facility on the other? Are you going to go to the aid of the elderly first? How do you decide that in the moment?
Well, it's a difficult choice. First of all, you have to have the resources, but you do the most good for the most number of people, right? So the assisted lifting center would probably be the priority in that particular case because they're non-ambulatory for the most part, right? So they have to be carried, stretchered, and moved by vehicle out of there. The other place, obviously, the people are ambulatory, can walk and self-evacuate. And those are decisions that are really tough, and they're typically made both on scene and at the instant command post. And the instant command post, what they will do is either direct or redirect resources to that area. So an interesting example of that is where I saw some criticism of firefighters driving by structures that were on fire, right? Well, I mentioned triage earlier, and that's what they're doing. Okay, like Liz said, they're trying to save lives first, and that's why their priority was on evacuation and rescuing people before property. Property can be rebuilt in most cases. Lives can't be.
Yeah. Tom, this question Danette has been asking for a while. I know it's a little random, but we like to accommodate SGS Nation. Was the friend you lost the fire chief from East Pierce?
Yes.
Yeah. There you go. That's the answer. Very sorry to hear that. There you go. I mean, it's a real life example. These firefighters go out and some don't come back home trying to save us. So
Liz, sorry, urgent. I just saw an email come in that I probably should have seen a while ago. If you need to go, please.
I've been handling it while we're talking.
Okay,
so if I get a little distracted.
Okay, no, thank you so much for being here and for multitasking and juggling everything and helping people save lives and homes and all of Los Angeles. We appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Tom, I want to go back to you. I mean, I sort of asked this question before, but in this particular case where it's kind of an urban wildfire, which is like a paradox, what is the biggest challenge? I mean, you got to get the homes, but you got to go through brush. So what's the toughest part? Are you literally like, using a machete or whatever to hack away the brush to get through? How does that all work?
Well, you can be. It depends on if your mission is making trail or something like that. Typically, now the LA Fire Department, LA County, and LA City both have dozer crews that are in the fire department, so they deploy them to build fire lines, and then in conjunction with the air assets dropping water. That's probably the most effective method, but you do have to get fire lines. Before a fire is considered contained, it has to have an effective fire line around the entire 360 of the fire. And that's why you see 0% contained on any of these fires yet, because they don't have any fire lines around them yet because of the Santa Ana's and the way the fire is behaving.
Yeah, by the way, I said Santa Anita. It was Santa Ana. Santa Anita is the racetrack. Another question for Tom. I'm very intrigued when I don't understand how a person does their job, which is the case here. How do you know how to? Well, in this case, the fire hydrants in some areas just went dry, but you've got so much water. How do you know how to allocate? Like how much water to dump in an area versus another area?
Well, there's formulas for gallons per minute on a fire. Typically in situations like this, though, you're trying to put as much wet stuff on the red stuff as you possibly can. And so you're using master streams, those big 1,000-gallon minute monitors that they have on the race, or you're using hand lines too. It depends on what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go with it, but the most effective method for putting out a fire is to put water on it.
Yeah, and by the way, this is a great point, and I'll get back to Elizabeth. And it looks like Liz may have had to jump off because she's obviously dealing with
Liz is handling
fire.
a lot of stuff behind the scenes, but she just messaged me saying that she had to go. And obviously, her job is most important right now.
Yeah, and we'll get her. All these super chats are going to go that way. Go ahead, Elizabeth. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I just wanted to answer your question, and then I'm going to have to head off too.
Sure. No problem.
So this thing of different people handle things differently. There's fight, flight, freeze, or befriend, and I think all of it is okay because it's the adaptive way of something that feels overwhelming. And I don't think it's gender specific at all. I think there are women who shut down and men who shut down. And I think we're all do it in some way we can.
Elizabeth, thank you so much. I know it's a brutal time for you and your family. We're thinking to everybody in LA, wishing you guys the best and a very quick and fast recovery, and hopefully no losses beyond what we've seen already.
And thank you for talking about this. This is real.
Yeah.
So thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you so much. Stay safe. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. The man who I have some questions for, and then we'll wrap it up in a little bit. But again, a reminder that the super chats are all going to be going to the Los Angeles Fire Department Foundation. And Liz was just with us, who runs that organization. And I'll tell you, it is a breath of fresh air living in a place like Miami, where I live, where you see Lamborghinis all day and Rolls Royces, and then you find someone like Liz who is doing work at a nonprofit that is very meaningful. So kudos to her. We need more Liz's and Toms in the world, less Bentleys and Lamborghinis, but that's just one man's opinion. Tom, to you, one of the issues yesterday, and I don't think it's an issue today because I saw a chopper reporter up, but there was no air support. They couldn't fly yesterday. How far behind the 8 ball does that put you if you can't get planes up there?
Well, in the beginning of these fires, they had air assets, both fixed wing and rotary wing up, and they were able to attack the fire instead of being in defensive mode. Once the Santa Ana's kicked up to above 40 miles per hour, I think that's the threshold for sustained gusts where rotary and fixed wing can't fly. Once that happened, the best way to fight these type of fires was taken away from them. And so now that the winds have died down a bit, and see, typical of wildfires, even in the urban interface, is that at night they sort of dampen down. The winds sort of go away a little bit, and you have a little bit humidity, and that's when we do our best work on a fire, because you do have the lower humidity, the low winds, and things like that. But in this case, that didn't happen. And their air assets were taken away. They're back now, and I think they can probably make some significant progress once they get especially the fixed wing going.
Yeah, I want to get to this question for the COE, but Tom, when you see a situation like this, yeah, I know you have it in your blood. Does part of you say, I want to get down there to help?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Me and every other firefighter that's retired and not there, we all, yeah.
What's that feeling? I mean, what's that feeling like when you're feeling helpless, but you're a guy that could actually help? So I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's hard to explain. But I know a lot of us have it, and you just feel like, I got these skills, I have this experience. I wish I could put on my bunker gear and my helmet and go help out. But like I said before, LA County, LA City, and the surrounding fire departments in the area are some of the best in the entire world, and they're probably the best in the world at this sort of thing. So I'd probably just be getting in the way.
Yeah, I doubt that. But COE, I think we're taking this for granted. The fire in the Hollywood Hills right now, from what I understand, is incredibly close to the world famous Hollywood sign. Number one, is that true, COE? And for Leia here, not familiar with Los Angeles, lives on the other side of the country. Is it affecting downtown? Just explain what parts of LA it's actually really impacting right now.
It's not affecting downtown. So they actually just had the map up here on KTLA, but they've now switched to something else. It's not affecting downtown. So downtown would be south of where the fires are right now. The two largest fires, the Palisades fire, that's on the west side. That's the one along the ocean, along the Pacific. And then the Eaton fire, that is in Pasadena, the Altadena area. And that's all the way to the right. So that would be east. And then the Hollywood fire right now is in the middle. And then there are two other fires that had broken out. One of them is north, much more north, like another 20 minutes north of the Hollywood fire. And then there was another one that was slightly west and about 15 minutes west and north of the Hollywood fire, but that one has now been contained, luckily, and that was a smaller fire. However, I just got a text from a friend who used to be a reporter that Joel, and she was just telling me that her sister's house was one of the few homes that burned down in that small fire that was contained. So even those smaller fires that are breaking out that are contained much faster, they're still leaving some devastating impacts on the community. But as far as downtown LA, that's not affected. People were also asking about Orange County. Orange County is further away. That's not affected, luckily, at this point. It really is just almost like the perimeter of Los Angeles. And in terms of the Hollywood sign is close to where where the fire is, the newest one. However, I don't know how close it is. I don't know if the fire is on the south side or the north side of the canyon. And as Tom knows, the fire could spread incredibly quickly, or the wind could push it and it could spread the other way.
Yeah, Tom. So I want to jump in right there. Marvin's mom comes to us from the UK, I believe. If the fires are unpredictable, which they are, how do you know who needs to evacuate? How quickly can the winds figuratively and literally change? Where you're telling one neighborhood to evacuate, but now all of a sudden you got to tell another neighborhood, no, now it's your turn.
Yeah, that's the conundrum, isn't it? So in the Emergency Operations Center, they'll have a duty meteorologist or two or three, and then they do what they call forecasting to decide where the amoebas on the map go. And those amoebas are those little areas like the yellow area and the red area and stuff like that. We call those amoebas. And those are then placed to predict where the evacuations need to occur. And sometimes, evacuations orders go out and they're immediate because they haven't been able to forecast. In a situation like this, it's so difficult to do that. I did notice the winds have died down to about 20-mile-an-hour gusts, which is such a good thing. And the forecasting would be better here. So, but it's difficult when we had 100-mile-an-hour winds in this fire. That's category 2 hurricane.
Yeah, we know
And
about that in Miami.
you sure do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Ohio, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry, but Ohio Palm Mom here is a question that I'm actually curious about. We're watching this from our living rooms or studio, wherever we are, but we're not in it three-dimensionally where there's wind, like Tom was just talking about, fire, noise, things being, not generated. What am I looking for? Like power sources, erupting into flames. So, Tom, to you, how do you guys communicate with each other on the ground? It's got to get really tough at some point.
it can be extremely tough. Yeah. Now I'm old enough to have been around during the old VHF, UHF sort of thing. And once they went to the new system, it became easier to communicate because there was a priority. You press the button to talk, and then it prioritizes you. But in these situations, everybody's trying to talk, and everybody has a priority traffic, and so it's very difficult to communicate. And so typically, one person is on the radio, and they're the only one talking, so that they can communicate with, a battalion chief who's a sector chief or a division chief or something like that. So you don't have everybody yakking on the radio, because then you get radio paralysis.
Yeah. By the way, special shout out here, HB Girl 99, $100 super chat that's going to go to the Los Angeles Fire Department Foundation. COE, I know I mentioned them briefly off the top, but we've got Space Coast on the West Coast who does all our engineering and technical work, and he's in LA. Your mom, shout out to Sandy, is with them. You got 2 sisters there, your dad. What's the latest you're hearing from them, and how are they holding up?
Yeah, so my sister was considering evacuating, but she's not in a mandatory evacuation yet. But obviously, she's monitoring what's going on with this new fire. And I just found out that one of my aunts lost her property in a family text. And again, my mom had to evacuate last night. It was a stressful situation. We actually couldn't get a hold of her for a while, and she's near the Eaton fire. Many homes have been destroyed there. People died there. That's the one where they've had the fatalities. And luckily, Space Coast was able to get a hold of my mom and asked her to immediately evacuate. And so my mom has been staying with Space Coast, and Space Coast is monitoring what's happening, as is my other sister, my older sister, and making sure that my little sister is safe. And then my dad is further away, so he's okay. But it just goes to show you that so many of us who have connections to Los Angeles are affected. And I mean, my phones are going off every 3 minutes with different people saying, what they've lost, that they're evacuating. Some people have now had to evacuate. I have a friend who's evacuated 3 different times because she evacuated her home. Then she went to a friend's house, which was in a safe zone, but then they had to evacuate. So they had to figure out where they were going to go. And now they're evacuating again. And as you guys know, a lot of my friends have a lot of little kids and pets. And so it's not always so easy to evacuate so quickly when you have all of these people and pets and everything to accommodate. But I will say the community has been phenomenal. I'm on a group chat right now with people that I haven't spoken to in years, and they're offering up different places where people can go. They're offering, to bunk up. Even my little sister, who at one point was in a very safe zone, offered one of my friends and her husband and her newborn and her pets their place. So it just goes to show you that there is a silver lining. People are stepping up. There are several law firms in Los Angeles who bought out various hotels, and they just offered up a block of hotels for people that needed it. There are free Airbnbs, and there are so many shelters around. So there definitely are places to go to if you need a place to stay. But it's still scary. I mean, we're watching this from Miami, and I feel like I'm stressed, and I'm not there. I can't imagine what people are going through. And Tom, as you know, like there's also the adrenaline of actually being there, of feeling the heat, of smelling the smoke, of trying to get around, and there's gridlock traffic. There are all these little challenges that get in the way. And that's why I think it's so important that when they say evacuate, you really want to try to evacuate as soon as possible.
Yeah, you got Desert Wildfire. This is a sweet little moment on STS. Abby Crossing's mother, staying safe in LA, wishing you the best. Followed by Abby Crossing, I love you, mommy. I'm going to start calling Carm mommy. I like that.
And we adore Abby Crossing.
We do adore Abby Crossing. She's great, and she supports us in many ways behind the scenes. They say that death is the great equalizer, but so is fire. That this doesn't discriminate. I mean, Tom, there are a whole long list of celebrities that just lost their homes, but I'm sure there's also plenty of low-income people. That's kind of like a sobering thought. It puts everybody on a level playing field. Fire doesn't care who you are, Tom. Is that right?
Exactly right. And those firefighters, they don't care who you are either. They're going to try and save what they can save, and save the lives they can save. They don't care if you live in a mansion or a tiny house. They're going to try as much as they can. My heart goes out to these firefighters because they are in the battle of their life. This is combat, and that's how they're approaching it. There's going to be casualties. And that's just the way it is. And the destruction is profound. My heart breaks for Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's tough to hear that. And the governor said that. Yeah.
Wait, Joel, speaking of destruction, I just want to pull these up because these are, so what you're seeing right now, obviously, this is KTLA. They've done a phenomenal job of being out there. They've had nonstop coverage. I was speaking to a friend who is a reporter and anchor there, and they've been working like 18-hour shifts, which I realize is nothing compared to the firefighters, but they're just civilians. So I'm going to remove this, Joel.
Yeah.
But so what you're seeing right now is the Eaton fire, and you're seeing this footage, and the Eaton fire has destroyed many, many things. They destroyed a synagogue that had been there for more than 100 years and was a big Jewish community center for many people in the Pasadena region. They've destroyed, obviously, more than 1,000 structures, and they've taken the lives of several people. But I also wanted to show this image because for me, since I know so many people in LA, it really is hard to grasp that this is truly happening. This is the image of a family friend who lost their home, and this is what's left of it. And while this is so heartbreaking because you can't even really see what the image looks like, this is probably one of the best images I've seen of all of our family friends because this house is the most intact. So this is one family friend. This is another family friend. This is now from the Pali fire. So this is the opposite side of Los Angeles County. This is the original fire that first broke out in the Palisades. And this here is what's left of their home. You can just see the brick border there, and then the foundation of what was, I guess, their chimney. And then this is another friend's home. And it's that home there on the right. And it's hard to even really understand what the home looked like because nothing is there. And all of these people, all of these family friends are safe. Everyone got out. Luckily, everyone is okay. These are just homes. They lost a lot of photos, a lot of memories. I actually called my mom and I asked her if she had her passport and her social security card and all of those things. But people lost a lot of things that they can replace. But as I'm seeing these and I'm recognizing what these homes once were, it is devastating. It is hard to really understand and grasp this kind of loss, because it's not just one person. I have probably a list of like 25 or 26 friends who have lost their homes. And so I know it's hitting a lot of us very personally. And for those of you who have family members who you haven't gotten a hold of, I know our community was reaching out even in the earlier chat saying that they were concerned because they haven't heard from family members. Our hearts are with you. It's a stressful time for everyone, even if you don't have a connection to Los Angeles and you're just watching. I mean, we're all human, and it's hard. It's hard to watch this and to just watch it all unfold, and to not really be able to do much and just sort of wait to see what happens. And I think, Tom, even the firefighters who are there are still trying to grasp the extent of what's going on, because I know even overnight, while they were there working the fires, they were working at night and hadn't really seen the full extent of the damage until sunlight this morning.
Yeah, and they're right in the middle of the fight. They're not at the beginning, obviously, but they're nowhere near the end. So somewhere in the middle, and we all know there's going to be a lot more destruction going on, and hopefully they'll get the resources in from the mutual aid agreements they have with Washington, Oregon, Arizona, places like that, and they'll get some relief for these folks, so they can get a little bit of rest to get back on the line.
Tom, just a couple more quick questions, and we'll wrap it up. A reminder that all super chats are going directly to the Los Angeles Fire Department Foundation. You're looking at this Eaton fire, which is obviously one of the many devastating fires that have popped up. What about the role of technology, Tom? You know, now you have drones, satellite imagery. Is all that stuff being used in this fight? That's question number one.
Yeah, I think so. I think they're probably using the full spectrum of their technological assets that they have. Obviously, drones would, be problematic with the winds that they had in the beginning, but they can fly them in the wind that I saw on the map there, and that gives you an overhead view of it in real time, which is extremely important, because when you're on the ground, you don't have a 360 view of things. You have this slice of the incident that's right in front of you, and for the firefighters, having a bigger picture view with say drone cameras or something like that would certainly be helpful.
Yeah. By the way, I hope he doesn't beat me up, because I love him as an actor, but I'm getting Woody Harrelson vibes off of Tom. Has anyone ever told you that?
No.
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 It's like I don't know. I can't really see you well, but your voice is giving me the Woody Harrelson thing. But he's a cool dude, and you're a cool dude. So there you go.
I was thinking more on the Brad Pitt thing, but
yeah, that
joking.
too, of course, that too. I think my final question. I'm always curious about like the inside baseball. So if you pull back the curtain now, what is really going on? Shout out to McSpunky. He's donating memberships. Who's a friend of the show. But if you pull back the proverbial curtain, I mean, LA is this massive, some people were saying it's bigger than some countries, which is true, a massive city. How in the world do you organize the defense against these fires from the top on down? How does it work?
Boy.
By the way, there's Black Widower says you look like Robert Redford, but go ahead there, Tom.
Okay, I'll go with the Robert Redford thing. Few's giving me garbage about being Woody now, but strategic thinking. So let's back up to 3 or 4 days ago. Okay, remember, and I don't know if you were watching, I was watching it, but they were warning, and they virtually predicted that this was going to happen. They knew that the fuels were dry. They knew that the humidity was very low, and they knew that they were going to get hurricane force Santa Ana winds. And so this shouldn't have been a surprise, and I don't think it was a surprise to any emergency services. But it shouldn't have been a surprise to anybody that something like this, now this scale, obviously is a little bigger than I think anybody could have predicted. But this was going to happen just because of the environment and the conditions that were present. And strategically, Liz talked about them pre-deploying units out to problematic areas, and you can do that when something like this apocalypse happens. You're overwhelmed. And let me make an analogy. Okay, this would be a lot like a battalion-sized enemy force, which is 300 to 400 soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, against a squad-sized force, which is about 12 to 14. That's what this is. The fire is the enemy. The fire is the big enemy, and unfortunately, our forces just weren't big enough to be able to counterattack in the beginning. We were on the defensive, trying to save lives and evacuate people while the fire was spreading, and that's all they could do.
Yeah. I think the best way to wrap up COE, if you have some final thoughts, please do share them. You're muted.
Sorry, I was responding via chat. My final thoughts are, first of all, Tom, I want to thank you. Oftentimes, we really take for granted the work that you and so many other firefighters and first responders do. We never need you until we need you. And then when we do, we realize how much you truly do for us. And as I'm seeing all of these homes that are destroyed and all of these homes that are being saved and these lives that are being saved, like because of people like you, my family, my friends are okay. So thank you so much to you. And thank you so much to all of the first responders who have ever covered any kind of emergency. So that's my first thought. My second thought is I just want to say thank you to STS Nation, because you guys are amazing and you guys have shown up here. We were unsure about whether or not we wanted to cover this story because we usually only cover true crime. But Joel and I stayed up really late last night, and I asked him to keep our TV on all night so that if there was some kind of emergency alert, I could hear, sorry, I'm getting emotional. I could hear an alert if my family was at risk or anything. So I just want to thank all of you guys because you're showing up and you're donating to the foundation, and you guys have shown up for so many different moments in our lives. But this one in particular hits home because my mom was evacuated, and obviously she's safe. She's fine. She's with my brother. But it's scary. You never know when things can quickly turn. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone.
We love you, COE. Your family loves you, and you're all bark and no bite. And this is a perfect example of that. But the COE runs the show in our house. Wow, it's heavy stuff. I don't want to leave on a down note, so I'll obviously, Tom, you lost a very close friend who's a chief in a department. There are physical injuries, but when you come out of this, and then I've got a final question. When you come out of this, what are the psychological effects or implications that you deal with? I mean, is there, I know Marines obviously deal with things like PTSD. Do you find that firefighters can struggle for different reasons? Maybe they didn't save someone, or maybe it was just, they're exhausted because they've been going too many days. What is the psychological impact?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Joel. And I'll tell you, everybody kind of reacts to it differently. I tried to use the philosophy that we were in the business of intervention. So things are going haywire, really bad. And our job is to inject ourselves into the equation to break it up so it stops going the way it was going. We can't do anything about what already happened. We can only respond and try and break up what is happening. And so if you can sort of wrap your mind around that as a anybody. I mean, a reporter. How many disasters have you guys covered? My goodness. Anybody sees this stuff, it's horrible, and you have to deal with it emotionally. But if you look at it like, okay, I'm doing my job, and you do it well, and I know I did everything I could do, then I can sleep at night. That isn't to say that PTSD isn't present in the fire service, because it is. Over 30 years, you see stuff that you wouldn't wish anybody would want to see, but you chose it. And as a professional, you act like a professional, even in the toughest of circumstances.
There you go. An odd way reminds me of Phil Waters, America's most respected detective, who was also a Marine on our show every Friday. Tom, you get the last word. You've got your brothers out there and sisters fighting this fire. What's your message to them?
Yeah, stay safe and Godspeed. Fight the good fight. You're doing the work that needs to be done in the toughest conditions, and we're behind you all the way. So it's a tough one for them. I mean, this is a once in a lifetime, maybe even 2 lifetime event, yeah, it's a tough fight for them. Maybe the toughest of their lives.
Yeah, and I can tell without knowing Tom beyond just meeting him tonight that like he's hurting inside a little bit, because I know he wants to be out there helping, and that's why firefighters are a different breed than most people. My final thoughts are, 9/11, I was working at the New York Stock Exchange. The world came to a stop, and America got united. We always seem to be fighting and divisive, and now you see people coming together. STS Nation's a perfect example. My only wish is that it doesn't always require a tragedy, that people could be this way without fires, without school shootings, and all these other horrific things that happen around us. But it also goes to show that the light is stronger than the darkness. There are good people who are out here and trying to help. And Tom, of course, is one of them. Tom is, in my eyes and in others, I'm sure, an American hero as a Marine and a firefighter serving his country. He is shaking his head no. I know he is. Tom Marino, it was great to meet you. COE, shout out to her for being the glue, Steve Cohen for getting last minute bookings, Space Coast for working through this somehow in LA, Sandy, Al, Carla, Matt, Hunter, Matthew, Mario, and whoever else I don't know who I'm forgetting. We love you all. Be safe. And Tom, stick around for 1 second.
Okay.